Hey guys, welcome back to Will Got Sports. And today we're going to be doing a bracketology and conference tournament pick podcast. So I'm going to be giving you my picks for each conference that has a bracket out so far, and just also going to be going through bracketology and telling you what I agree with, what I disagree with, and then giving you some of my picks for March Madness, some top contenders I feel, and some sleeper teams that you should watch out for. So let's get right into it. So the first one is going to be the Ohio Valley Conference, and for the OVC, I'm going to predict Morehead State winning, just because Morehead State, they've won it the past 2 years ever since Murray State and Belmont left. So I don't see any reason why that changes. I think they're still one of the top teams in the conference. I and they've been here before, so I'm going to say Morehead State goes to goes on to win the Ohio Valley Championship. Next bracket is the Big South. So Big South, this one's pretty easy. High Point, they're 26. They only have 5 losses this year, so I don't see any reason why that they don't roll through this conference like they have all season. Give me High Point to keep doing what they've been doing and get to the big dance. High Point is winning the Big South. Next up, we got the Missouri Valley, and I got Indiana State winning this one. But if you ask me, they're just a flat out favorite. They've they got ranked this season. They haven't done that since 1979, and only 5 losses the whole year. I just think that Indiana State is going to be too much for the rest of the conference. But I do think that UNI and Drake could put up a fight, considering how good UNI has been as of late. They have a 11-point win over Bradley, a 12-point win over Southern Illinois on the road to get the 4 seed, and then they won today by 5 against Belmont. So I just think that UNI could potentially play Indiana State close, maybe even win that game. But I do think that Indiana State will win the tournament. Next up, we got the ASUN, and the ASUN's been a crazy conference so far. You'll see what I mean. Jacksonville, the 10 seed, has made it from beat Kennesaw State by 6, beat the number 1 seed, and almost beat the number 2 seed. They lost to Stetson by 1, but staying on with Stetson, they're clearly the better team than Austin Peay. Austin Peay likes to score. Stetson can score more. I just think that it's a really good matchup for Stetson. So, with that being said, I'm going to have to choose Stetson. They've also been right up there with Eastern Kentucky as the top team in the conference. So, yeah, I'm going Stetson in the ASUN. Next up, we got the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt, I'm going to be going with James Madison. They started the season beating Michigan State, and then I think they started like 11-0. So James Madison's going to be a tough out. I think they were ranked as high as 19th at one point. But yeah, they're going to be really tough to get out this year. And I think that if they made it, this would be their first ever conference, or it might be their first ever NCAA tournament. But I do think that James Madison is the best team in this conference. So with that being said, I'm going to go with James Madison. Next up, we got the SoCon. SoCon's another easy one. SoCon, you got Samford, 26-5, 15-2 in the conference. They've just been so good this year, so consistent. I don't think that stops. The same reason with High Point. They're going to win this conference. Just like how I talked about High Point. Samford, for the exact same reasons, is going to win the SoCon. Next up, we got the Horizon League, and this one's also been pretty crazy. First up, we have my pick, Oakland. Oakland is going to win this conference. It's not going to be close in either game they have left. They're just so much better than even the second best team so far or left. So it's definitely going to be Oakland. Oakland by a mile. But I do see a way that Milwaukee could actually win because I think Milwaukee's got a good defense, and they beat Green Bay, who's probably the second best team in the conference. Other that's I mean, I think it goes Oakland then Green Bay. But yeah, I think it's going to be Milwaukee and then Milwaukee Oakland, and I could see that game going either way. Next up, we got the Northeastern Conference. In the Northeast, I'm going to go with if it will ever load. The Northeast, I'm going to go with Merrimack. Now you see Merrimack on the 2 line, and you're wondering, oh, well, did Central Connecticut State play better than them? No. Well, why are they on the 2 line? Well, I'm just going to say that Merrimack didn't go like this. Merrimack stayed at the same level. Central Connecticut State just got better as the season went on. And so there's not really much you could do about that. So, for that reason, I'm going to stay Merrimack. They've been to this. I think they won it a past couple years besides last year because obviously Fairleigh Dickinson won that. But yeah, I think Merrimack, the best team in the conference this year, I think they get it done. But Fairleigh Dickinson, back to them. They're a sneaky team this year. Very good, very solid defensively. They returned most of their starters from last year where they won the whole thing and then beat Purdue. So I'm saying that Fairleigh Dickinson could actually make a run and win the tournament. But I am going to go with Merrimack. Next up, we got the CAA. I don't know if I don't think it's filled in, but yeah, it's not filled in. But the CAA, I'm going Charleston. Charleston's been so good. Charleston has been the top team this year so far. And I don't think anything changes with that. Charleston was 24-7, I think, but they're definitely the best team in this conference. And I see them returning to March Madness for the second time in 2 years. I see them returning to March Madness as a repeat of last year. That's what I meant. Next up, WCC. Next up, the WCC. I truly believe, say what you want, but Gonzaga is the best team in this conference. As of late. Hang on. Okay. Gonzaga is the best team in this conference, and we all saw it. Sorry about that. Okay, back what I was saying. Gonzaga is the best team in the conference. We all saw it last weekend when they beat St. Mary's on the road by 13 points, 70-57. So, and they've been playing so much better recently now that they got Greg in their starting lineup. And I just think it's going to be a tight game between Gonzaga and St. Mary's for the championship. But I do think that Gonzaga will win the championship and get the automatic bid into March Madness. Next up, we got the Summit League. Summit League? For the Summit League, I'm going to go with. Sorry about that. But the Summit League, I'm going to go with. I'm going to go South Dakota State. They've just been good all year, and they're one of the few teams. I think it's them and St. Thomas were the only two teams in the conference that had a road record that was above 500. And so I think, truly, I think it will be this match between South Dakota and St. Thomas will decide the champion. But I do think in the end of the day, it'll be South Dakota State winning the Summit League this year. Okay, next up, Southland. Southland's pretty easy. I mean, you gotta go with McNeese. 27-3. They have the highest point differential in the country, I think. They have, or turnover differential, but they're the best team in this conference by far. They were 16-1 in conference play, so I don't see any reason that they start losing now. So give me McNeese to walk through this conference, to win the conference easily. Next up, we got the Big Sky, and I think this is the third to last one. Okay, Big Sky. I'm gonna go Northern Colorado because last year we were doing the bracket, and you know who lost? Who's the 1 seed last year? Eastern Washington. You know what they did? Nothing, because they lost in their first game to Northern Colorado. But this year, it'll be different. I expect. I don't think it'll be different. I mean, Eastern Washington is not built to play in the postseason like they are in football. Eastern Washington will lose, will not win this conference. Northern Colorado is good defense. I think they played close with Eastern Washington the whole year. So for that reason, I'm going to go Northern Colorado instead of Eastern Washington. Next up, we got the Patriot League. Patriot League, this one's pretty easy. Colgate has won the Patriot League the last 4 or 5 years, so I don't see why they stop now. Give me Colgate to run the table and go back to March Madness for the fifth or sixth time in a row. But watch Lehigh. They were in this exact same position last year. 6 seed, and then they made it to the championship. So I'm just saying, I got Lehigh in this game. But never mind that. I think we got our last bracket before we go on to the bracketology part. Yep, we got the American East and American East. I'm going to choose Vermont. Vermont has been the best team in this conference since UMBC went to the tournament and beat Virginia in 2018 or 2017, 2018. So I think it would have been 2018. So like 7 years ago. And since then, Vermont is, I think, 141 and 15 in, I think it's overall. But it's either overall or in American East play. But they have that record somehow, and they're just so good. I don't see any reason that Vermont does not win this tournament, but I will be extremely shocked if they don't. It's not anyone's to win, it's Vermont's to lose. So, with that being said, I'm going to take Vermont. All right, and that wraps up the conference tournament part. So now we're going to go into bracketology. Okay, guys, so we are now on the main bracketology side of things, and this bracket was just updated. Usually they do it every Tuesday, but when they get closer, I think they update it every 3 days. So here's our bracket watch. They got Purdue as the top seed, Providence as the first team out, and Virginia as the last team in. Here's the bubble. And one thing that's interesting to me, it's not about Iowa, even though I'm an Iowa fan. It's about Drake. Usually, mid-major schools, it's one per conference. Besides, like, the West Coast, most years, and other conferences some years. But this is surprising to me. Drake could possibly make it into the tournament. I feel like they'd have to play superb against Indiana State, and they'd have to be like 1 point within. But I definitely could see them making it over like Virginia or Mississippi State. But yeah, watch on Drake. So we're gonna start number 1 seeds, or should we start with the regions? Yeah, let's just start with the regions. So region, the Midwest, Purdue. I like that. I'm not gonna talk about the 16 seeds. I think I'm gonna talk about the top 10 seeds for each region. So, Purdue, I like it as the 1 seed. I just don't like them as the overall 1 seed. I think Purdue makes it definitely at least to the Sweet 16. But, I don't know. We saw what happened last year, so there's no guarantees. So, I think that Purdue is one of the favorites in this region. Purdue and Iowa State are definitely the favorites in this region. But anyway, let's get into it. Purdue, I like that. Little Rock, Grambling State, sure. Texas Tech and Boise State. Let's talk about this. Texas Tech is a good team, but are they good enough to win in against good teams? I don't know. They lost to TCU. I don't know if they beat a ranked team, but I think they have been ranked. But I think that'll be an interesting game. Now, in this part of the bracket, I think it'll be Clemson that'll actually come out of this bracket. Considering Kentucky, I just don't like Kentucky. They've had too many close calls with too many unranked schools for me to like them as a 4. I would say that Clemson comes out of this region and ends up playing Purdue in the Sweet 16. But if you would ask me, I would switch Clemson Kentucky. Okay, this region is where it gets tricky. Indiana State, they're definitely such a good team, and I like a matchup against Wisconsin for them, especially in Indianapolis, where it's really close to home for both teams. But Wisconsin, I don't think they're a 6 caliber team, but based on how good they've been this season, I don't know if you can put them any lower because Wisconsin was number 6 in the country at one point, but then everything fell off. They went up and then hit number 6, and then they haven't been the same since. So, I don't know. And then Marquette, I like Marquette as a 3. It's just Marquette's had some bad losses to Creighton and UConn, but I think they can definitely make it out of this part of the region. And then final part is this part, obviously Iowa State. I would see them getting out of here with not too much trouble, but Mississippi State, I don't like how good they are. I mean, they're just kind of tough to predict because one day they'll beat a ranked team, and then the next day they'll play really close with a ranked team and just lose by a couple points. And the next day they'll get blown out. So I don't know about Mississippi State, but I'd keep my eye on them. Next up, we'll go down to the West, which has Tennessee as the 1 seed and the number 4 overall seed. Tennessee, I like the move to make Tennessee a 1 seed instead of a 2, especially with Dalton Connect being one of the Heisman, or not Heisman, one of the Wooden Award finalists. I think Tennessee is a really good team, and I think that they'll have an easy. I feel like they'll have a relatively easy time advancing in this region. Texas and Nebraska. Nebraska, I feel like it's all going to depend on how Tamanaga plays. Tamanaga either gets 30 points or he does not do well. He gets like 30 points or like 6 points. So it's going to depend on Tamanaga for their success. Then in this part, I like this part. I think Grand Canyon could be seeded. Actually, no, because Grand Canyon's been falling a little bit. I think you could switch Grand Canyon and UC Irvine, but it's not going to be that much of a difference. Illinois, they are a good team. It's just Illinois has had a little bit of trouble with Purdue, so I don't think they can get past the Sweet 16. But other than that, Illinois looked like a really good team this year. I would have a hard time believing they don't get out of this region with the win after the Sweet 16. Next up, we got Utah State and Baylor part, and I agree with basically everything except I don't know if I think San Diego State might give Utah State a run for their money in the Mountain West. But all in all, I like this part. I think Baylor definitely gets out. But yeah, it's just tricky. Oh, too far. And then the last part. Arizona, the 2 seed, Gonzaga the 7, Colorado State the 10, and Eastern Washington the 15. Arizona is so good on offense this year. They just pace, pace, pace. That's all they do. They're like the 2015 Warriors where Steph Curry made 402 threes. That's how much scoring they do. But Gonzaga is one of the top tier. They are top, I think. I think they're like top 20 in both scoring offense and defense. So I think I think that'll definitely be a really good second round matchup between Gonzaga and Arizona. But Colorado State is a tough play for Gonzaga, so that'll definitely be a tougher game. But on this side of the bracket, I like Purdue, Iowa State, and Tennessee, and Purdue, Iowa State, Tennessee, and Baylor. I like Purdue, Iowa State, Tennessee, Baylor to be contenders for this national championship spot. Now we go over to the east side where they got UConn as the number 1 seed. Me personally, I like UConn as the number 2 overall seed. I think they do good. They've been really good this year, and I think people are going to have a really hard time beating them, especially with Klingon. So, yeah. Northwestern and Oklahoma is an interesting game because Northwestern has been on a rise while Oklahoma's been sliding a little bit. Oklahoma was at one point, I think, ranked 9th, but Northwestern, they're now just emerging onto the scene. I think they're 5th or 4th. They're 4th or 5th in the Big Ten. So I think Northwestern is a good matchup for Oklahoma. Offense versus a little bit defense, but more offense. So, yeah. Next up, we got BYU. Oh, I obviously like UConn to come out of here. We got BYU, Richmond, Auburn, and Samford. I like this region, especially for BYU, considering it's in Salt Lake City. But definitely, yeah, I think BYU is a home wrecker. They just have been so good this year against good teams, and they've beaten Kansas. They might have beat Iowa State, but yeah, I think BYU could make some noise. BYU could definitely make some noise in the tournament. Next up, we got South Carolina and Kansas in that region. I like New Mexico. New Mexico is a good team. I don't know why they're ranked so low as 11, but I think New Mexico could make it to the Sweet 16. They got size, they got defense. They just got a lot of good things on their team. So I think they match up well against Kansas. So I don't know. Watch New Mexico. They're definitely gonna be a good team. Then we got St. Mary's, Seton Hall, North Carolina, and Quinnipiac. North Carolina, I really like them on the 2 line, especially considering if they do end up with the automatic qualifier spot out of the ACC. Excuse me. But St. Mary's, they're not on the decline. They just lost to Gonzaga. I think they really just had an off night that night. But nonetheless, I do really like North Carolina out of that region. So I'm going to say UConn, BYU, and North Carolina, BYU, and UConn. I could see all fighting for the top spot. Last region, we got South region. Houston, Michigan State, I don't know why they're up there, but they did beat Northwestern, I think. So Michigan State, I could see as like a 9 or an 8, yeah. FAU, starting the season off really hot, dip down, ending the season off really hot. So I would think that that's definitely a good one. Washington State, I like out of this region. And Alabama, I think that could be switched a little bit, but overall, I like that region. Creighton, I don't think they'll have a really hard time in this region. And then Duke. Duke is not a 2 seed. They have all their losses besides North Carolina and Arizona are bad losses. I don't think they make it past the Sweet 16. But I think my contenders in this part are Houston and Creighton. So I think my national championship Final Four is going to be national championship. We got for our Final Four. I'm going to pick Iowa State, Tennessee, BYU, and Houston. And then national championship would be Iowa State, or we'll go Tennessee and Houston, and then I got Houston winning that. Sleeper teams would be Washington State, BYU, New Mexico, Gonzaga, just based on how they've been recently playing. Indiana State could be a sleeper, and then Northwestern. But I think that's all I have. So that'll be Will signing out on this podcast. And if you want to, like and subscribe, but that's Will signing out.